Perks to get their thoughts about it.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Great cast on the day. I wanted to say that one for a while. But, guys, absolutely commanding performance there in Game 4, but that was not the whole story for the series. It was very back and forth in those first 3 games. Can you tell me what was going on in those games that made them feel so close?
So, first game, we actually had a lead early game, I think, and then we trolled it a bit because there was some miscommunication. We took some very bad fights, which we shouldn't have. And then we came back, or like we won some team fights because we have better comp, I think. And second game, we like got really stomped early game. So it was kind of doomed. And then we still could have won, but then when we had like 4 or 5 items, we forced the fight mid, and then it was like, we can fight, we can fight, we can fight, but plot whistles, we couldn't fight. So then game 3, what happened game 3? I don't even remember anymore. Oh, Talia game. Oh yeah, yes. The Talia game. That one was close because I think we didn't play to our winning conditions very well. In the early game at least, so they actually like got some kills with LeBlanc roaming top, and then after one fight bot, the game was kind of open up, and then it was a really good game again. But
so handing it over to you, Sven. Coming in Game 4, you put on a clinic on that Tristana. Do you think Tristana is a pick we can expect more from in the future, or is this something that you kind of pulled out in a time of need?
I don't think Tristana is like a super good pick. I think it's actually bad in lane against Sivir, but it's really good later in the game. I didn't expect to actually win lane with that pick, but it's good against their champs later in the game, as teaching and stuff like this. Good late against Scaling too, but it's like I couldn't really pick Jhin against these champions. Ashe was banned and they had Sivir, so there was so many champs to pick. I think Lucian is okay, but Lucian wins lane against Sivir, but he's not so good later in the game, I think, against their champs. So I chose Tristana for weaker lane phase and stronger late game team fighting and sieging.
Well, you got the best of both worlds. You did end up winning that laning phase. Awesome to see some of those individual outplays and the confidence coming in those dives. But looking ahead, finals in Krakow, faced up against Splyce. You guys went 1-1 in the regular season last time you faced. We'll pass it back to you, Perks. How do you feel about the matchup coming up? Do you feel confident after today's games?
Well, our today's series was kind of shit, or we played pretty bad. So it's not like I feel super confident to our play, but I think we have shown not even half of what we play. From scrims and stuff, because we can play a lot of different styles. So I'm pretty confident going into match versus Splyce, because I feel that in that series versus H2K, they kind of exposed H2K and had the same picks all game, which won them the game. Like Wunder were carrying along with Nara and Gragas jungle. So I think Splyce is a good team, but I think we have a good chance versus them.
Final question, looking ahead, gentlemen, you've already qualified for Worlds, but unfortunately, due to the lackluster performance from Europe at MSI, the most we can hope for is a second seed. So I'm curious, as we look ahead to the group stage, are you guys at all nervous coming in as a second seed, knowing that you're going to have to face the top teams in the world? We'll start with you, Sven.
I think last year I had a third seed, and it went pretty well for me. I think second seed is not the worst, it's not the best either. But I don't think it's like a super big problem to have a second seed. Sometimes second seed is worse than third seed. Like last year, for example, second seed had EDG and SKT, so it's not always better to have second or third. So I think it's going to be okay for us, personally.
I think it just depends on lucky or unlucky draw in groups, but I'm fine with playing versus the best teams, because I think to actually go far in Worlds, you have to win versus everyone. So playing versus good teams in groups wouldn't be like end of the world. Maybe it will be really hard to get out of the groups, but if we do it, then we'll have a very huge confidence boost going further into tournament. So I'm just looking forward to Worlds, that's all.
Honestly, good to hear you guys both having a positive outlook on that state of affairs. But thank you so much for talking to me. Congrats again on the win. We're going to hand things back over to the Analyst desk to further break down that series.
Thank you, Tifa, and welcome to the post-game lobby. I thought that was a very, very interesting interview coming out of you. A lot of interesting answers. The first thing I want to ask, of course, Trashy, we asked how we do against Splyce, and they said, well, very one-dimensional in terms of the draft space. Yeah. We immediately said, we didn't show you anything.
I mean, if you ban Nar and you ban Gragas, you probably have a free win, because, I mean, we have no other champions to play, so
Yeah, they are.
At that point, you probably just win. So kind of sucks for us.
How are you gonna deal with this? Maybe have you tried practicing other champions, or are you just gonna keep picking Nar and scrims for morale boost?
I mean, if Gragas is open in solo queue, I usually just only pick it, because it's the only champ I really can play. So I tried other champs, but not with the same success. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Trashy. Another thing that I want to jump on is Perk saying, we trolled a bit. Every single interview that I've ever done with Perks or that I've heard, he said if they ever lost a game, we trolled a bit. Come on, guys, isn't it time to stop? And this is the semi-final series of the splits where you know you want to prove something.
He's not wrong. He was trolling quite a bit. I mean,
But in terms of,
Well, I don't know. Getting solo kill at this point almost feels like just something that's supposed to happen in the game. But jokes aside, I think this last game, it's really hard to like take something out of it, honestly, because I feel like it was nothing else like the other games. The other games were actually close, and there was just these tiny, small details that made the difference. Meanwhile, this game, it was pretty much over in a couple of minutes.
But hence the question, should a team that is vying to do well on the international stage and win the final not clean it up for semifinals and try to show, or at least play cleaner without showing that much?
Maybe
mean,
they can't.
When you're snowballing, but when you're smashing a team this hard, like
I'm talking about games 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. Oh, by all means, G2 should have been cleaner. Getting sucked into the skirmish style from Unicorns. Honestly, if Unicorns were a bit more crisp in their kind of like exile roam stop, use that advantage to dive bot execution, G2 would have been 1 and 2 behind in the series.
I mean, we also have to give props to UOL. I think they played the early game in those games well, and they put like they made the G2 struggle a bit, and I don't think G2 necessarily is like the best early game team, and I think UOL found some openings to abuse that, and this series would have been even more close if UOL actually had better understanding of what to do in the mid game.
So if UOL was Splice.
Then it might have been a lot more closer.
Yeah. This is obviously the problem also for G2. If they don't smash UOL in 3 games super quickly, then we're going to criticize them. But we are looking at a team that's going to Worlds from Europe, so I think that's fair. But overall, did you have anything to add?
No, just listening, you know, enjoying the conversation.
Sorry, misinterpreted that. MVP as for this series is I'm just going to read it off. Sven locked in MVP for the day, the greatest AD carry in Europe, and oftentimes Sven does really well. But how come he doesn't get MVP most of the times and he gets it now?
Yeah, the question we have to ask ourselves sometimes when we decide is MVP versus like Trick for Sven, it's like, what could Sven have done better to get the MVP? And very often the answer is like nothing. But the problem is just that jungle is such a highly influential role. And Trashy, you mentioned this actually off air quite a few times, how Trick consistently was 1 or 2 entire levels above his opponent Move.
I think this is probably one of the biggest struggles for Move as a player, and what I've seen from him is that he tends to just in the mid game fall behind. His early games sometimes are good. He can snowball lanes and stuff, but somehow he always finds himself behind in XP and 2 levels down, sometimes even 3 levels down in this series. And overall, I feel like Trick was just miles ahead of him, and if there is such a big mismatch in a series like this consistently, then you will have a hard time.
Yeah, and that's then grounds for potentially, you know, Trick MVP, who we're going to give it to. I think both of them were definitely worthy of it. Maybe Soraka performance was honestly in terms of like serious influence of an individual game, I think that was a really stellar game from Mithi then, because like it swings like the momentum, you know. Imagine if they dropped that game. So there's all these guys played very well. They all deserve MVP.
I also just realized that I got a little bit trolled by I was reading the prompter. I didn't get a chance to look it over for the MVP because I don't know what the casters voted, of course. And it says the greatest AD carry in Europe. I didn't want to make that my opinion. Is he?
I mean, he's a Dane.
Is he? Oh.
Denmark won in handball, right? I mean, this is a day for Denmark.
Let's repeat that again. Denmark won. But the greatest AD carry in Europe is Sven, yes or no at this time?
Yes. I mean, I don't think there is much question to it, but I do think something that many people miss out on is that actually his like prowess as a player isn't actually his mechanics, even though he often shines in that regard. It's actually his game knowledge. I think many times you just see him in a favorable position, if not all the time, actually. It's just so rarely that I find him like out of position or just fighting when he shouldn't be fighting. It's always on his power spike. He's always in the right position on the map.
And that's something he's worked on, because there were a couple of games like Spring Split where he was maybe overextending a couple of times because he was so used to having these Lulu comps built around him. And then once he didn't have that anymore, he was playing like frontline Lucian.
Yeah.
But his team also lets him make those mistakes because they know he will improve. You know, this guy is so good.
Yeah, fantastic team overall. Let's take a look at the finals bracket as it is now fully locked in for Krakow next week. And here is what is on the cards. The Unicorns of Love versus H2K on Saturday for the 3rd place match, and G2 versus Splice on Sunday. predictions, gentlemen. Let's start with the third place match. Reckless.
I think actually both matches are hard to call. I mean, going into the HK Splice series, I called it for HK convincingly, and going into today's series, I called it for G2 convincingly, and it felt like both series were actually a lot closer than they perhaps should have been, like going into things. But I think generally speaking, like all the teams that are in top 4 are good on this patch, and both series will be quite close.
So who wins?
Okay, if I have to call it, I think Unicorns will actually beat HK, and I think finals 3-2 G2 maybe.
If Unicorns beat H2K and G2 wins the final versus Splice, you guys are still going on championship points because
would be
H2K
pretty
has
good.
to be third.
I would like that.
Yeah, and what
that
do you
would be
think will
fine.
happen?
I mean, maybe we will win, but if Unicorns win, that's also good for us.
Can you win, Trashy?
I mean, of course we can win. I mean,
So do it!
I mean, I think the play today showed that G2 have weaknesses, and that is what gives us hope that we can beat them. And I think it's so weird talking about it because we have practiced so much against G2, and it kind of I don't know why Perks would say that they only play these champs, because obviously they know we played other champs too, and we
Triggering
can.
you.
Maybe it's to get in your head.
So yeah, it's already in my head. But
Oh no.
he should know, because we practice so much against them, and honestly, maybe it comes down to whoever finds out something specific that they can pull out in this upcoming week, because we pretty much know each other in and out, and
That's gonna be really hard for us to even like consider analyzing these pick and bans, because these teams will be like 2 mental steps ahead. Because we'll be like, clearly this is the meta pick that's gonna come out, and then like a random like Yorick mid will be locked, and we're like, where does this come from? Because it's the counter of the counter of the counter. But it'll definitely be. It's always fun to see teams play on the stage that have scrimmed each other so much in their preparation, because then we get either really good games or one-sided stomps.
Yeah. TLDR, it's going to be super interesting, and you guys, tickets are still available to join us there in Krakow. Head over to lolesports.com for details. And I see we are mere minutes away from going over to the NALCS, so we're about to shut down here in Europe. But coming up next, the NALCS will be live with our second semi-final between TSM and CLG. Fiery prediction, TSM or CLG?
TSM.
Yeah, TSM.
All right,
sadly.
3 times TSM.
I mean, there's
no. That's it. We gotta
Let's
go.
go,
We gotta go. We gotta go. Time for us to log off right now. Thank you guys so much for joining
You're welcome.
us.
Thank you.
No problem. I mean,
You got a toss, and what's
mind
going
game.
on?
Next time you'll see us, we'll be live in Krakow, Poland. Join us at the Tauron Arena on Saturday, 5 p.m. Central European Summer Time, as we crown Europe's best. Good night.
Bye bye.
Ay, ay, ay.
Nice.